It was marketed as the future of human travel, but in exactly 34 seconds, the pride of the German fleet went from a floating palace to a heap of burning debris. To understand why a giant balloon was seen as the solution, you have to look at the other commercial airplanes of the 1930s. They were tiny, uninsulated, and loud. Passengers were subjected to freezing temperatures and the violent, stomach-turning jolts of constant turbulence. But the Zeppelin was the majestic alternative, and the LZ-129 Hindenburg was the king of the sky, a vessel so large it seemed to defy the laws of physics. This scale comparison shows the sheer size of the ship. At over 800 feet long, you could fit 3 modern Boeing 747s end-to-end inside its massive hull. Inside, passengers lived in total luxury. There were grand dining rooms with white linen and a lounge with a custom-made piano. The flight was so incredibly smooth that a pen could stand upright on a table for the entire crossing without falling over. For the social elite, the Hindenburg was the pinnacle of aviation, completely insulating them from the freezing, noisy, and miserable reality of 1930s flight. But keeping a giant metal frame in the air required millions of cubic feet of a lighter-than-air lifting gas. The designers had a choice between 2 gases. There was helium, which is inert and safe, or hydrogen, which is easier to produce but extremely explosive. The engineers wanted helium, but they hit a political wall. The United States controlled the world's supply and refused to sell it to Germany, fearing it would be used to support the rising Nazi regime. This cross-section shows the compromise that resulted. Denied the safe option, the designers filled the ship's internal cells with 7 million cubic feet of highly combustible hydrogen. Driven by international tension and the belief they could control the chemistry, the engineers had essentially built a 5-star hotel inside a flying bomb. Knowing the danger, the engineers did something that sounds suicidal today. They installed a smoking room. This schematic shows how they tried to protect the passengers. The room was highly pressurized to ensure air always pushed outward, preventing any leaking hydrogen from entering. They even added airlock doors and a single change-down electric lighter. These defenses seemed to work. In May 1937, the Hindenburg left Frankfurt and completed a 3-day transatlantic crossing without a single issue. But as the massive ship arrived in New Jersey, it was met by a highly charged electrical thunderstorm. The lightning and heavy rain forced the captain to delay the landing for several hours. The engineers had built elaborate defenses against the habits of their passengers, but they could not engineer a way to stop the violent electricity of a storm. While waiting for the storm to clear, the captain took the ship on a detour over New York City, giving passengers a scenic view. By 7:25 p.m., the storm had passed enough for a landing. The Hindenburg hovered 200 feet above the airfield and dropped its mooring lines to the ground crew below. To align with the mooring mast, the captain made a series of sharp, aggressive turns. These maneuvers put enormous physical stress on the internal structural frame of the ship. This animation shows the failure point. The stress caused a wire to snap and slash a hydrogen cell. As gas leaked, the heavily charged skin released a massive spark to the frame, instantly igniting the highly explosive hydrogen. Extensive forensic investigations eventually debunked all theories of sabotage or bombs. The disaster was the result of weather, physical stress, and explosive chemistry. The fire spread instantly, consuming the entire rear section. As the gas burned away, the ship lost its buoyancy, and the burning tail dropped violently toward the airfield. This flow diagram shows the physics of the crash. As the tail hit the ground, the nose pointed straight up, creating a chimney effect that sucked the fire through the center of the ship and incinerated the passenger quarters. Within 34 seconds, the pride of the German fleet was nothing more than a smoldering skeleton of twisted metal on the New Jersey ground. Despite the speed and intensity of the fire, the survival rate was miraculous. 62 of the 97 people on board managed to escape alive. The tragedy was a demonstration of the lethal cost of cutting corners on safety. In 34 seconds, the margin for error had been reduced to 0. The crash was witnessed by a radio journalist named Herbert Morrison. His professional reporting shattered into a display of raw panic, giving the world a visceral audio record of the catastrophe. Because the crash was captured on film and radio, the public didn't just read about the disaster, they saw and heard it. Overnight, the image of luxury air travel was replaced by the image of a falling inferno. Public confidence in airships vanished immediately. The Zeppelin company saw its business model collapse as the world realized that hydrogen-filled vessels were too dangerous for commercial use. Just a few years later, the technological demands of World War II accelerated the development of faster, safer airplanes. These advancements would eventually lead to the jet age, making the massive airship a relic of the past. The Hindenburg stands as a stark lesson on the cost of engineering compromises. By choosing a dangerous shortcut over safety, the designers brought the commercial airship industry to a permanent stop.